Business Awards. The 18th edition of the India Business Leader Awards will see the creme de la creme come under one roof to honor the best in the field of business, sports, entertainment and entrepreneurs. In fact, our team is right there at the red carpet. Joining us now is, of course, Manglam Malu, our colleague, who gave us a glimpse of what to expect. Manglam, tell us, give us a mood check. What is the vibe like and what can the viewers expect going forward?
The vibe is the most chill vibe that you would ever have, man. But, you know, I'll tell you what, the mood check here is extremely upbeat. Everyone, the who's who of India Inc. is here. And I found myself, the man himself. It's an honor to be speaking to Mr. Ashwin Dani, one of the founding families of Asian Paints. And this, on the day, the company reported incredible set of numbers. But that's just about a quarter. For multiple years, he's gone ahead and, worked with utmost passion to take the company where he has. If this is not a sign of excellence, we don't know what is. Mr. Dani, again, the big question, what keeps you going always?
Well, I've been with the paint industry for almost 55 years. And I eat paints, I drink paints, I drink paints. I've spent my whole life around coatings. And ever since I graduated from UD City with paint technology, I've devoted my whole life to paints.
He said he eats paints, he drinks paints, and he dreams paints. So those would be rather colorful. But in 55 years, you've seen a lot of competition. Now, as we speak, a lot of other paint conglomerates or other non-paint conglomerates are looking to enter this industry. What message would you give to the management of Asian Paint from your experience?
Well, paint has always been a competitive business before 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. And when we became the leader in 68, other than us, the remaining 5 or 6 paint companies were all of foreign origin, British paint company mostly. So we have seen paint to be a competitive business, and still we kept on marching by innovation in both technology, in business processes and whatnot. So I think with customer centricity being our main concentration, I think we will keep on marching. And fortunately, paint market is also growing with the increased growth of the residential and office buildings both coming up in a big way all over the country.
Right. Before we let you go, Mr. Dani, out here we honor excellence. We honor business excellence. We honor excellence across multiple fields. If there is one message that you would like to give to everyone who is chasing excellence as a pursuit, what would that message be?
Well, I think the same thing what I have been repeatedly saying, that we have to concentrate with respect to customer centricity, and customer is the king. And as long as we keep on concentrating on customer centricity, we will always succeed. That is all I would say. Customer centricity.
Thank you, sir, for your kind words of wisdom. Wish you good luck. Please take your seat inside. But he said a very simple thing, focus on the customer. And that's something I believe, Ritu, the person who has with you also does. And that's what explains the sort of leadership that we've had for the last couple of decades.
Very much, Manglam, like you said, and like Mr. Dani said, the focus should always be on the customer, and that is what we've seen right here at CNBC-TV18 as well. Shireen, 18th edition of the IBLA. How is the whole journey evolved? All these years, 18 years of doing this.
Well, I have to say that it's been 18 years of tracking some of the tallest leaders across India, leaders from different parts of the country, leaders from different sectors. But I think there is one unifying glue in it, that each of these individuals who walked away with an India Business Leader Award are people who've believed in institution building, people who wanted to leave behind a legacy, people who wanted to create not wealth but value for their customers, for their employees, for society, and those are the people that we've honored here at the India Business Leader Award. So over the years, we've of course seen not the categories necessarily change, but the people who are being nominated to those categories. The age profile has changed, the demographics have changed, but what remains consistent through these last 18 years is that it's a very, very robust process that we follow. the India Business Leader Awards jury takes its job very, very seriously. This year, the chairman of the jury is Kumar Mangalam Birla.
Yeah.
We spent half a day debating, discussing, analyzing each nominee. The good news is that while there's been plenty of disagreement in our jury meetings, there's never been a dissent. So the decisions have always been unanimous. And I have to say, we have a fabulous list this year as well.
Is there anything you could give us in terms of a hint of what we should expect? What were the most difficult decisions? You said there were no dissents, but what was most debated?
I think some of the categories where there was a lot of discussion and a lot of debate was in the areas of impact. So, for instance, the disruptor category, or for instance, the startup category. The startup category perhaps was a category that saw a lot of discussion and a lot of debate, primarily because you don't really have the financial metrics to judge these businesses. So you really have to judge, exactly, you have to judge them on the basis of the idea, on the basis of the disruption, and on the potential of the money that they will hopefully generate as well, because we want these businesses to be sustainable and viable. So I would say that's a category that saw a fair amount of discussion and debate.
Shireen, what is the process like? We know the editorial team sort of shortlists some names, then there's some oversight on that before it's finally presented to the jury. What's the kind of work that goes behind selecting? Because like you said, 18 years, generations of business leaders that we've seen evolve all these years, it's hard to pick them.
It is hard, and I think that we start with the shortlisting process where the CNBC-TV18 editorial team puts together a nominee list, and this is based on quantitative parameters as well as some qualitative parameters, but it's a very sort of stringent quantitative parameters that we first use to vet who makes the cut, so to speak, and then we whittle that down to about 4 or 5 nominees across each category, and then finally the jury gets to decide who of those 4 or 5 will walk away with the India Business Leader Award. So it takes a couple of months, and it is a fairly extensive exercise. Our dossier, which is the India Business Leader Award dossier, runs into hundreds of pages. That's the kind of homework that the jury also has to go through to be able to select the winners tonight.
Well, there's a whole dossier, and even at the jury meet, let me tell you, there are people sitting there to answer more questions because of all the deliberations that do happen. Shireen, thank you very much for your time here, and we look forward to the rest of the evening with you.
Thank you very much, Ritu, and I hope everyone's tuning in to India Business Leader Awards on CNBC-TV18.
All right, Ashwin, it's back to you in the studio.
Right, Ritu, thanks a lot for that. Now, as Shireen was clearly pointing out, that this is an extensive exercise, but it all culminates today, the biggest night for corporate India, the India Business Leader Awards. There's a lot of excitement, a lot of energy. And as you continue to stay tuned into CNBC-TV18, you'll see a lot of big, influential voices coming in, getting us a sense of what they expect of where things stand, how they see things progressing as 2023 proceeds. So an important night to stay tuned into CNBC-TV18. A lot of key decision makers, a lot of key influencers, and not just from the space of business, but we're talking from the space of entrepreneurship, startups, entertainment, sports. You'll find a lot of them there. Good reasons to stay invested into this night, into this conversation here on CNBC-TV18. But it's time now for us to slip into a very short break. We'll continue our focus on the India Business Leader Awards in just minutes from now. But for more news and action, stay tuned to CNBC-TV18 just after this small break.
Well, the who's who of India Inc. and also D Street is now with us. We have Nilesh Shah of Envision with us. Nilesh, we're talking about consistency, excellence, awarding the leaders. The one thing that's consistent is the way you work out and the way you work towards yourself, because we look at any reel from the old days of the India Business Leader Awards. The one thing that's constant is the way you look. How do you do this, man?
I think it's just discipline, nothing else. Markets teach you to be disciplined, and I think the way you treat your wealth, you've got to treat your health.
All right, and perhaps treat your health a lot better than your wealth, because the wealth can come and go. Health, once gone, will perhaps never come back.
Absolutely. It's a bigger treasure to have.
All right, so in that case, let's also talk about the health of the market right now. We're doing well. We've somehow decoupled from the uncertainty that we're seeing in the global markets right now. Do you see that as a good sign, or perhaps at some point, things will not look as good?
No, I think it's a very, very strong sign. I think the decoupling probably began when the Reserve Bank of India in the last policy meet chose to have a pause and not hike rates. I think that was the big signal that we are probably able to manage our macros in a significantly better way. We've, of course, got to be cognizant about the headwinds that the world could pose for us and the world economy. But I think on a standalone basis, I think we're doing fine. And if we just keep going along the way we are doing right now, I think that should keep us in good stead.
Is that how you're positioning your portfolio as well? And is that what you're advising to your clients too? That stay with domestic-focused companies and not dabble too much with export-facing companies? Or the time is right for some export-facing companies too?
I think it should be a good mix, though of course you should have the tilt and the balance towards the domestic-facing businesses, because clearly the economy is growing at a much faster pace, and a lot of the domestic businesses are facing some great tailwinds, especially in terms of lower raw material prices. I think interest rates have peaked, so I think a lot of domestic-facing businesses should do a lot better.
All right, and we can never let you go without asking you a question on IT. Is it a good time? Because Salil Parekh is going to be here. What are you going to ask him?
No, I don't think it's yet a good time. I think they're going to have a lot more headwinds. The reality is that they're probably going to grow in low single digits. I don't think that's good enough for an equity investor. I think an equity investor has many more better opportunities. I think in the IT space, probably plenty of bottom-up, mid-cap, small-cap businesses are probably better placed than some of the big large companies.
All right, Nilesh, whether that has a good time or not, we are sure that you will have a good time this evening. We'll let you go. On that note, we'll also give it back to Ritu. Ritu, you have with us, the MD of Tata Power.
I do. Mr. Sinha from Tata Power is with me. Mr. Sinha, thank you very much for your time here. Today at the India Business Leader Awards, I just wanted to understand, even from a Tata Power point of view, all of these years of journey, and now, of course, what are you most excited, what are you most hopeful about as we kickstart this first quarter of the new financial year?
Thank you for having me on the show. For Tata Power, it's a great opportunity to be part of the transformation. And as you know, globally, everyone is talking about the energy transition, and Tata Power will play a very, very important role.
No doubt.
Tata Power, in fact, believes in this. The ethos of this company more than 100 years back was that we will produce clean power, we'll produce green power, we'll produce cheap and abundant power. And I think that is so true today also, and we are very excited about the opportunities. Thank
you very much, Mr. Sinha. Thank you. On that note, I'm going to toss it back to you.
Ready? We're rolling? With us right now is TVS Motor Company's Venu Srinivasan. Mr. Srinivasan, thank you so much for being with us here at this event today. We're honoring a galaxy of industry leaders from across India, Inc. I'd just like to ask you for your message for the Indian industry, your outlook for the Indian economy, and where we're headed.
I think India is one of the most stable economies in the world today, and we are headed in the right direction. I think we'll see more than 6% growth this year, hopefully 6.5, but somewhere between that. And so I think we've got a good year looking forward to.
I know you get this question very often. TVS Motor Company is going through a major transition in different ways at the leadership level when it comes to electric vehicles, green fuels. How do you envisage this company for the future?
I think we have to be a global company in personal transportation on two wheels. We're looking at electric bicycles, electric motorcycles, scooters. We're already in almost 100 countries. We need a bigger footprint in Latin America, a bigger footprint in Southeast Asia. So I do hope that one day we will be really major players in both those regions. We're already a big player in Africa.
And my final question to you about the IBLA platform, the India Business Leaders Awards. This award has been now running for 18 years. Your thoughts about this platform?
No, I think it's an amazing platform that you have created, and all kudos to CNBC for having created it. It's certainly one of the most prestigious recognitions going around in India today. And all I could say is I'm very grateful to the tens of thousands of people who have worked for a lifetime in building TVS, and on behalf of whom I'm receiving it today.
I'm sure it means a lot to your company, your employees across the country, across the world, and to us here at CNBC-TV18 to have you and your entire family, Sudarshan Venu, Lakshmi Venu, and Ms. Mallika Srinivasan as well. Thank you once again, sir. Thank you, sir.
Well, I have with me Ms. Zareen Daruwala, the CEO of Standard Chartered India, who's been a veteran of IBLA, if I may say so. Ms. Daruwala, like I said, you've been here through the last 7-8 years with us. How have you seen, the industry change after, coming out after what is a great macroeconomic shock from the COVID, and then the recent events that have played out, geopolitical tensions, inflation concerns, and whatnot? Right now, to your mind, what are some of the top priorities for the banking industry?
I would say it's been a good period of last 1 year where we've seen good credit growth. We've seen corporates being very conservative and delevered. So for bankers, to my mind, the risk profile is completely changed. Whether it's the individual or the corporate, there's much more conservatism in borrowing. So that is clearly something that is playing out well. The second is, I think, with all the PLI and the infra push from the government, we are seeing corporates really looking at expansions in the core sector, certainly steel, cement. We are seeing a lot of expansions announced or underway. And also we are seeing, the new age economic companies, despite whatever is said, we are seeing them move forward. So that's quite a good thing to see. And as banks, I think there's enough and more to do. We're seeing retail, the real estate sector, again, looking up in the Bombay, Bangalore, etc. So we're seeing a lot of housing demand. So for banks, I think it's a good period. I would say we've been fortunate that we are ring-fenced from all the events that are happening in the banking system overseas. So,
surely, it's a good period for the Indian banking system, even more so given what's going around globally. We saw the banking crisis unfold in the US. I mean, we saw a series of banks collapse. I just wanted to understand, what are the big lessons or the takeaways that Indian bankers you have to look at? I know ALM is an issue that the Reserve Bank of India has constantly been highlighting as well.
I would say if you look at the SVB example, actually Indian banks are much more resilient because there's a lot of reliance on retail deposits. SVB had a lot of deposits which were wholesale and they were from new age economic companies. While if you look at most Indian banks, if you look at CASA plus retail term deposit, in a lot of Indian banks it will be either 80 to 100% of their advances. So to that extent, that shows the resilience of the balance sheet. Plus, I think in terms of recognition of mark-to-market, etc., I think Indian banks have been far more conservative than their peers in other geographies. To that extent, all negatives are recognized, not upsides. So to that extent, I would say our accounting and our way of operational is much more conservative.
Speaking of upsides, the last couple of years, we've seen the Reserve Bank of India hike the interest rates, and that, of course, is beneficial for banks in general. We've seen them enjoy the benefits of larger margins as well, but now that interest rates are peaking, and I don't know what you're expecting from the upcoming RBI policy, are we in for a phase of, a more cautious growth?
No, I would not say so. Yes, banks have been beneficiary of interest rates, but if you look at corporate term deposits, they've also notched up equally. So it doesn't mean that the bank borrowing cost has remained less. To that extent, I think the margins have been I would say have not shrunk a lot. Having said that, I think it all is a function of what US Fed also does in terms of the interest rate outlook. But one is seeing a little bit of sense that, yes, we are coming towards perhaps the peak of the interest rate cycle.
You don't see that affecting demand in any manner, the rising interest rates of the past year? And, of course, deposit rates will catch up over a period of time. But right now, how's the demand looking?
We are seeing good credit demand, actually, whether it's the retail segment or corporate segment. I think we are seeing good buoyancy.
Ms. Daruwala, always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you. On that note, I'm going to toss it right back to you. Well, have with me Mr. Adar Poonawala from the Serum Institute of India. Mr. Poonawala, a pleasure having you here, and you were, of course, on the jury for IBLA this time around. Tell us, what were some of the categories where you found it hardest to pick a candidate, or, generally, what was your impression from the list of people that we had?
Well, as CNBC always, TV18 does every year, it puts a bunch of candidates together. So it's really hard to choose between all these entrepreneurs and, so it was difficult to choose business leaders and entrepreneurs from such a distinguished group of people and individuals. But I think we were able to come to some good conclusions based on, transparency, growth, corporate governance, and really the ones who are able to deal with, crises in their areas or sectors and then, still come out swinging ahead. So we made, our decisions and had a lot of discussions on that basis. I think there were some categories that were certainly harder to pick from, and I think that'll be announced soon. The winners. So I won't go into that. But all in all, it was a very good and a great experience to be on the jury.
And, even for Serum Institute of India, you really stepped up during the time of the COVID, of course. Now that is behind. I was wondering what next should we hear, both in terms of finance and pharma from you?
Well, I want to take it easy now and not mess up what I've built. You might find that odd to hear, but I think that's one of the hardest things an entrepreneur or a business leader can do, because once you see a little success and growth, you want to do a lot more, or you want to diversify. I think right now I want to just focus on Serum Institute and Poonawala FinCorp, which is also doing very well, as you may have seen from the latest annual figures. So I think I'll just stay focused in these two areas and hope to steadily build our growth and performance there.
All right, Mr. Poonawala, thank you for your time here. I'll toss it right back to Shireen, who has a very special guest with her.
Well, welcome back. You're watching our continuing coverage here at the India Business Leader Awards, and it is such a pleasure for me to have with us Mr. Azim Premji. Mr. Premji, it's been far too long since we had our last chat, so thank you so much for joining us here at the India Business Leader Awards. I want to start by asking you about what you make of the India story today. Everyone's talking about how this is going to be India's decade, how this is poised to be India's century. Given the changes that you are seeing in the world today, as well as the advantages that India enjoys, how do you read the story?
It's positive, not as positive as people make it out to be. But overall, it's positive. We are uniquely positioned, including our relationships with Russia, which helps a lot.
Mm-hmm. You said it's positive and we're uniquely positioned, and that's what I want to talk to you about. Everyone, of course, understands the software services story, and that has been one of our biggest sort of advantages over the last several decades post-liberalization. Now the hope is that we are going to be able to unshackle the manufacturing story that we've been in hope of for several years. Do you believe that we're at the cusp of now seeing a manufacturing revolution take off as well, given the unique advantages you spoke of?
Well, not as much as people expect. I think there's a lot of concern about the bureaucracy, and there's a lot of concern about the quality of the infrastructure. So we are losing a lot of business to countries like Bangladesh, for instance. We're losing a lot of business to countries like Vietnam, which we will be losing. So our share of what is moving out from China is nowhere close to what is the potential.
Let's talk about the IT services story, and what we are seeing at this point in time are challenges on account of external factors and the macroeconomic headwinds that the US is dealing with today. But there is again a lot of talk that we are on the cusp of the next disruption, and this disruption is going to be driven and led by AI. How do you see that?
It will be led. Huge investments are going into it, and we should not underestimate its application.
And where do you believe India finds itself in the AI race today? Do we have a unique position to be able to win in the AI age?
I think you'll see movements taking place. It's too early. At the moment, we are not having any leadership position. Nobody is doing very well, but I think this will catch up in the next 3 to 6 months.
Mm-hmm. And, you've, of course, spent the last several years now busy with the Azim Premji Foundation, with the work that you are doing through the foundation. What is the vision that you now have for what you hope the foundation will be able to achieve?
We are basically working with underprivileged children. We are working in areas where there is duress, distress, poverty. We have a very major foot in education, educating teachers. In government schools, we have a very major foot in healthcare, primary healthcare centers. And we have now started a major foot in universities. We have one in Bangalore. We are setting up a second one in Bhopal, which will start recruiting this year for students. We're setting up a third one in Ranchi. And we have initiated 3 more areas. One is in the area of setting up creches. Second is in the area of providing an egg in a midday meal or a glass of milk in a midday meal, because it has a huge effect on nutrition of the children. And the third is in the area of working with madrasas, in terms of providing them an English teacher and providing them a math teacher. So they're able to give regular education in addition to whatever religious education they give.
Mr. Premji, what keeps you going? What keeps you motivated? What inspires you today?
It's a race with myself.
Who's winning?
I don't know who's winning.
Mr. Premji, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us here at the India Business Leader Awards. We look forward to spending more time with you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you very much. Well, that is Azim Premji at the India Business Leader Awards. We have lots more guests joining us here, and we will, of course, be back with more conversation. But for now, I hand it back to you.
Right, Shireen, thanks a lot for that engaging conversation. But just right behind you, Shireen, is, of course, the man of the hour, the man who was in focus, Mr. Devendra Fadnavis. He joined, he's joined these conversations at IBLA here once again. Again, in focus on account of that big Supreme Court verdict. He'll, of course, be wanting to talk about that as well. But that's the nature of the India Business Leadership Awards. We're getting people from across the spectrum, from the political spectrum, from business leaders, from the world of sports, from the world of entertainment. Alia Bhatt is expected to make an appearance at the IBLA Awards. So stay tuned. A lot of reasons to stay invested in this conversation right here in CNBC TV18. But with that, let's slip into a very short break. We'll in fact come back with much more from that night here at India Business Leader Awards.
Standard Chartered presents 18th India Business Leader Awards in partnership with Hindustan Times.
We don't just make new categories. We remake legends. In fact, we make the whole world of India's mobility new forever.
वोल्टास का नया प्योर एयर एडजस्टेबल एसी विद हेपा फिल्टर लाए साफ ठंडी हवा सीधे आपके घर, वो भी 6 एडजस्टेबल टनेज मोड्स में।
तो हवा और सेविंग्स दोनों टन-टनाटन।
I am slow. I'm a tortoise. But your wealth managers, they shouldn't be as slow, you know?
Choose Nuvama. We move at the right pace because we only do what's right for you and your money. Nuvama. Let's do it right.
Z-Black Premium Agarbatti and Dhoop, official prayer partner, Delhi Capitals.
An exquisite solitaire. Truly special.
कुछ फ्रेंड्स ना बिल्कुल फैमिली जैसे होते हैं। मेरा फ्लैटमेट जस्ट लाइक माई मॉम।
कपड़े आज धोएगा या अगले साल?
हेलमेट ओए उठा। इसीलिए ना आई गॉट अस एयरटेल का फैमिली प्लान, 2 कनेक्शंस सिर्फ 599 में। मतलब वे बेटर देन अलग अलग रिचार्ज ना।
सुन, नाश्ता बनाऊं?
फ्रेंड्स हो या कॉलीग्स, सबके लिए है एयरटेल फैमिली प्लान।
ऑल्सो अवेलेबल फॉर रियल फैमिलीज।
Samsung Solve for Tomorrow is a national education and innovation competition. This is your chance to make an impact for India. Don't miss the opportunity to win prizes. So join the Samsung Solve for Tomorrow today.
Dadu,
Yes?
what does premium mean?
Beta, premium you can say is like petrol. The car will keep going till the time it has petrol. Once petrol is over, the car stops.
But Dad, this time even if the petrol is over, our car
won't stop. How come? With LIC's Jeevan Labh, even after the premium payment tenure is over, the policy's benefits continue.
That means our journey of happiness will continue non-stop.
LIC, हर पल आपके साथ.
हमने लिए 90 लाख में, आपने लिए 80 लाख में.
ये सेम क्यों नहीं?
क्योंकि आपके और हमारे होम सर्च ऐप सेम नहीं है. जानिए प्राइस ट्रेंड्स और सही ट्रांजैक्शन प्राइसेस on 99acres.com.
Who said the markets can't be exciting? Who? Get the lowdown on the yays and mays. Straight from the top, catch market feels and news reels. Number crunch for the best of the bunch. The bigger Q for the richer you. Hot trends, big noise, what's viral and what's out. We'll give you the market goals you need to stay ahead. Mad about markets.
Making the future truly forward and charting a path towards gender parity.
We actually think as an organization that we will benefit from ensuring that there is much greater representation of diversity. In the current context is gender diversity we are talking about, because we will get better quality inputs, better ways of processing the same information, which we will reflect back in the way we serve our customers.
A mega initiative to make gender parity an attainable reality. HSBC presents CNBC-TV18 Future Female Forward, the Women's Collective.
Presented by HSBC.
Co-presented by HCL Tech.
Knowledge partner Deloitte. Industry partner Vicky. Associate partner Reliance Industries Limited.
Standard Chartered presents 18th India Business Leader Awards in partnership with Hindustan Times.
Well, a very good evening and welcome back. There are the visuals of the India Business Leader Awards. We're only moments away now. I'd be lying if I say that the excitement is not infectious. I'm sitting a good 1,000 miles away in the city of Delhi. That's happening, of course, in the city of Mumbai. But I can feel the energy here. I can feel the excitement here. And for good reason. There you have it on the high table there, where you have the jury members, Mr. Poonawala, Mr. Kotak, Mr. Premji. In fact, just moments back, Shireen was in conversation with Azim Premji. He was talking about how perhaps India is finding itself in a unique position. And there you have it, Mr. Devendra Fadnavis as well, the man in focus. But we'll, of course, keep trying to reach out to them. But first, let's go across to Nigel. He has with him a special guest.
Not very often do we get the two biggest names from the fairest space on one platform. And today is my lucky day then. We have Mr. Jayant Acharya as well as Mr. Narendran who are joining in. Well, thanks so much, gentlemen, for coming down for the program, first of all. Mr. Narendran, you go first. We just spoke a few days ago. But there's plenty of chatter. There's a bit of a slowdown out there in the global markets. Are you experiencing something like that because you have a large exposure to Europe?
I think it's still a bit volatile out there. Even if you look at the last week, you had China softening last week. This week it started with iron ore prices, coal prices and steel prices going up a bit. Too early to say, but I think, if you look at the PMI in China for services, it's going up month on month. On manufacturing, it's a bit down. So it's too early to predict, but we are, I think, in for some volatility. But I think the fundamentals in some places are still quite strong.
All right. What about you, Mr. Acharya? I mean, I don't want to ask you any number specific because in the next 1 week or so, we'll be having a chat.
Results are on the corner, yeah.
But what about demand domestically? You know, the one bit of worry which Mr. Narendran as well mentioned is exports are creeping up from China. But how do you see the domestic environment?
So I think the domestic in India is quite good. The capex investments which we see by the government of India, states, the public sectors and the private is probably one of the highest which we are going to see this year. Secondly, the manufacturing activity, I think overall we all feel is stepping up. Last year it grew at about 5%, and we see a decent amount of growth coming in this year as well. Capacity utilization is up to 73% or so. Now, if you come to China, one thing good which has happened is that they have now declared that they would like to limit the production to calendar year 22. So what it means is that the production on a daily rate should come down to by about 5% every day, which is about 10 million tons a quarter.
Right, that's the hope at least.
That's the hope, that's the announcement which they have made. And certain regions and certain provinces have announced that already. So that's good. And I think in general I agree that the fundamentals are good. And India typically is standing out.
Okay, so that's good news of India standing out. Mr. Narendran, before we wind this down, what more would you like in terms of support from the government of India? You know, we have always, I observe, when China gets into a bit of a dizzy, then the focus comes, you know, on the local government. So what more are we looking at? Infra push, I think it's there. Pricing has been reasonably stable, but what else?
I think, yes, infra push is there. As of now, imports is not yet a big issue. But I think if it continues this way and there's a lot more steel coming in than we are used to, then certainly we'll look at what is it that we need to do to make sure that the investments that the domestic industry is making is not wasted.
All right, and Mr. Acharya, what about exports? I mean, you all are putting up large capacity, so I'm sure you'll want a bit of a booster shot on the exports front. Comment on that.
So I think I would rather say that, you know, India has today first enough manufacturing capacity to take care of the domestic demand and then look for being a big world player. So export certainly, I think, while the Indian steel industry continues to export, but I think as a country we need to now have a look at what we need to do to contain imports into the country which are coming in because of trade flows getting diverted at a cost at times which is hurting the domestic industry. In view of the expansions of capacity in India, I think that's an area of attention which we need to look at.
Okay, all right, gentlemen, thanks so much for joining in. Well, not too often do we get JSW Steel as well as Tata Steel on the same platform, but today was our lucky day and we got comments both on the domestic industry as well as on the Chinese steel industry. Back to you guys in the studio. Thank you.
All right, Nigel, thanks a lot for that. In fact, you said it's rare to have two of the biggest metal names with you, but I'll tell you what's rarer, to have Prabha Narasimhan just ahead of the company's quarterly results with you as well. Of course, Colgate's results come tomorrow, so I'm obviously not going to talk about the business, but, you know, it's been a couple of quarters. You seem a lot more settled, are you?
Yes, I think I'm definitely feeling more settled in this job, and it's been a fantastic ride. It's been a little over 8 months, and I've had a great time.
You have had a great time, and is it just you who's settled, or the consumer sentiment has settled as well?
So I think there is still a degree of volatility there. We're certainly not seeing rural markets come back as much as we would like them to. There are some green shoots, but we're not seeing them come back as much as we would like. On the other hand, premiumization continues, and that continues to be a really good story, one that in India I think really has many, many years of runway, and obviously even now has been pretty good as far as we're concerned.
Right. Where are the India Business Leader Awards? We honor excellence, we value consistency and leadership. You are a leader in the field that you operate in. What are your secrets of leadership and constant market share maintenance?
So I think firstly, I'm extremely privileged to have the ability to manage a brand like Colgate. It is, as you know, Mangalam, I don't need to tell you, but I'm going to say it anyway, India's most penetrated FMCG brand in the most number of households. So I think you start with a significant advantage there. But beyond that, I think it's a question of staying true to your values, being consistent and doing the right thing as far as consumers are concerned. If you keep that consistent, I think then you tend to be pretty okay on a medium to long-term perspective.
You know, leadership is about two things. One is process and the second is person. Everyone knows the beauty that process brings, consistency brings. But at the same time, there has to be something which is personal in nature, which adds to the alpha of growth. What do you think you can bring now that you've seen 8 months? What is it that you can bring that can add to the alpha of Colgate?
So I think one of the things that's kind of in my DNA is a little bit of a healthy dissatisfaction with everything that's going on, and the effort to constantly just keep improving and pushing things forward. And I think that works brilliantly with a company like Colgate that has such great raw material to start with. So you just keep nudging it forward, and then hopefully eventually you reach a position where there is real magic.
All right, we will hope for that real magic to continue. Thank you, Prabha, for always being nice, kind, and also taking the time to speak to us just a day ahead of the numbers. Enjoy your evening, and I will enjoy the results tomorrow, hopefully.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to talk to you.
All right, with that, it's back to you in the studios.
Right, Mangalam, thanks a lot for that. Now, there you have the visuals. We just have Mr. Hardeep Singh Puri, the Minister for Petroleum and Natural Gas, also joining in on this conversation at the India Business Leader Awards. We saw him in conversation with Mr. Devendra Fadnavis there discussing. We're hoping to, of course, get a sneak peek. We'll hope to connect with him in a while from now. But there you have it. We're only moments away now. We've already given you a glimpse of the galaxy of stars that have descended on the Geo Convention Center. We've spoken to some of the tallest leaders. Nigel there was talking to the Iron Men of India. He was speaking to Mr. Narendran, Mr. Acharya, of course, from GSW Steel, Mr. Narendran from Tata Steel, giving us a sense of what they expect on this journey going forward. We also had with us Ms. Prabha Narasimhan sharing a few ideas about her journey. She's been around here as far as Colgate is concerned for a few months. She was sharing with us her journey here. There you have on your visuals there, on your monitors, Mr. Shah as well is joining in on this evening with us, is being a part of the 18th edition of the India Business Leader Awards. And again, just to set the ball rolling in terms of what to expect. Again, as would the name suggest, you have the tallest business leaders, but it's not confined to business. I have to say that at the cost of repetition, because we have a whole host of stars joining in from the world of sports, from the world of entertainment, from the world of startups. That is, of course, a great brewing space. And Shireen, just as she was talking to us a while back, this has been a huge effort that the CNBC-TV18 team is putting out. What you see here, of course, is just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot of legwork that the editorial team did in terms of identifying the names, identifying persons that need to be recognized, their efforts need to be recognized. It's been a difficult 24 to 36 months for corporate India, for large part of Indians, and it's a part of that recognition of that effort that CNBC-TV18 is trying to put its best foot forward in appreciating and recognizing talent across the spectrum. And again, at the cost of repetition, not just from the world of business. We also have, there you have on your monitors, Mr. Adar Poonawala as well. And in fact, one name that we discussed a while back on this broadcast was Mr. Parekh. He was expected to join us, and we have him now. Reema is joining us with Mr. Parekh by her side.
With me right now is Salil Parekh, the CEO and MD of Infosys, and we're coming to you live from the India Business Leader Awards. Salil, thank you very much for joining in. I know it's coming just less than a month after your quarterly numbers, but you know, after your Infosys numbers, many of the other IT companies reported their numbers, but the picture was not as bad as what we saw in the case of Infosys, right? You've reported a decline across sectors in North America. Can you tell us specifically what went wrong with Infi? Because as I said, the picture is not as bad with the rest of the IT companies.
So today, the focus is more on the award function. We shared what we had to share at the end of the results. The next update will come when we do our next quarterly. Overall, what is clear for us is the focus is, as we look ahead, there's enormous attention on generative AI. There's a lot of work going on automation, on cost, on efficiency with clients. So we'll continue to focus on that. And today, I'm really delighted to be here at your award function.
No, we're very delighted, and congratulations on the award as well. But can you talk a bit about generative AI, the top 3 ways how this is going to change Indian IT? Perhaps in terms of jobs, democratizing it, maybe in terms of productivity, passing on benefits, the way you see generative AI impacting Indian technology. Top 3 things.
So generative AI, there are multiple ways it will make an impact. One, there are open source generative AI platforms. We are working with 2 of them, where we are putting all of our software development tools onto the platform, which then creates further efficiency and benefits for our developers. So that's a huge impact we'll start to see in productivity. Another way is when we work with clients where they're using generative AI, whether they're using open source or other platforms, to make improvements within their portfolio and environment. So for us, generative AI is a very critical technology which will start to make an impact. We've been fortunate We've been working with generative AI for about 2.5 years on the open source platforms.
And you see a big boost to productivity on account of this?
We are already seeing an impact on productivity. The way to look at it is how broadly can these tools be used in development. So the more standardized either the client environment is or our environment is, the simpler the way to use this tool and the more impact you can have.
How many of your employees are currently trained on generative AI to use those prompts?
So it's not a question of training on generative AI, it's the open source platform that we have to feed with this large language model. Once that, training of that model is complete, then you start to use it because the tools are what we are already using for development. That's how the benefit will come.
And when do you think we will be able to have a large scale across the enterprise kind of an impact? Is it 2 years? Is it 3 years down the line? Or can it happen even earlier?
So the impact, for us, we are starting to see the impact on many development programs. And more will come, as each quarter, each year progresses. So there's not like one milestone where everything will suddenly shift, but it's an incremental impact.
Will we see job losses on account of generative AI?
In fact, we think we will see, like all technologies, more people who will be engaged in these things because the spectrum of what is addressable expands when you use generative AI. So typically you see more and more impact on that.
At the lower end, can we see job losses?
There again, our experience from the past is any automation, you sort of enable more areas to have focus on, and we'll see more growth.
So complementary. Just one more question. Now, in your avatar as Infosys and even prior, you've seen many technology cycles. How would you rate the current cycle that we're in?
So all tech cycles have an element of disruption and have an element of continuity. What we see with large enterprises is many previous technologies still exist and the new technologies integrate. So typically that's the approach we see with large enterprises.
No, and in terms of a slowdown?
There it depends on how the economic environment will develop. We'll see how it is out.
Early days then, to call it, if this is going to be a deep entrenched slowdown or is it going to be a...
Yeah, so we will see how the various factors, whether it's in Europe or in the US environment, what the economic impacts are.
Salil, thank you very much for joining in. Enjoy the function.
Thank you very much.
And it's back to you in the studio.
Okay, done. Right, Rima, thanks a lot. There you have it, the visuals there. We're just moments away now from the beginning, from the initiation of the India Business Leader Awards. We've already given you a glimpse of the galaxy of stars coming in. And on that note, let's slip into a very short break. We'll come back on the other side with more.
Standard Chartered presents 18th India Business Leader Awards in partnership with Hindustan Times.